everyone. It's so good to have you back with us for our next episode of the 21 Secrets of Peaceful Moms. Today, we are so privileged to have with us Brett Cotter to share his insights. Brett, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be here with you. I'm really excited.
So, Brett Cotter is the author of The Stress Is Gone Method, The Suicide Prevention Family Handbook, and Three Keys to Managing PTSD. He has 25 years of experience helping clients process the most traumatic events of their lives. He's taught in Fortune 500 companies, hospitals, schools, military bases, and world-renowned treat centers, including the Omega Institute, Kripalu, Sivananda, Bahamas, excuse my pronunciation, and the Himalayan Institute. Brett is the trauma expert for Meditation University's teacher training program, coaches survivors of domestic violence, parents who have lost a child to suicide, and mentors students weekly. Brett's programs are accredited by the International Mindfulness and Meditation Alliance. He is certified by the American Academy of Experts in Traumatic Stress, and his breathwork is certified by the American Institute of Stress. Whew, all right. So he is the man we want with us today, teaching us how to manage stress. And so I want to acknowledge that you do some really intense work. And so if anyone
Mm.
has some of these really intense things like deep traumas or suicide in the family, suicide of a child, you might be a great person to go to. We're not actually going to focus on the most intense stuff
Mhm.
today. We're going to talk just a little bit more about stress and triggers and anxiety and anger.
Mhm.
So, with that said, I'm curious a little bit about your story first. How did you come to get into this work yourself?
So, great question. I was 27, living in California, and I started to go through like a period of my life where I was like going through like an awakening. I had reached everything I thought I was going for. I was on pace to make $250,000. I had the girlfriend I wanted, the dog, the apartment, the car, the job, the bank account. And I finally got there and I was like, something's wrong. Like it doesn't
Mm,
feel like it felt like almost a little bit empty. And then I knew there was something missing. So in that period, I decided to go for a transcendental meditation class, and that opened me up. And then I realized that I had a pattern since I was 15. All of my relationships with women, I would get really jealous around the 18-month mark of the relationship. And I was in another relationship, and my jealousy was starting to come out. So I really wanted to work on that jealousy. Long story short, by an incredible sequence of events, I got referred to an incredible healer in Sedona, Arizona. And I drove out to see him that weekend when I first got referred to him from California. And within 5 minutes, cellular memories from when I was 5 years old surfaced from my body into my conscious mind. And when that happened, I was in the memory. I was
mm,
watching my parents argue the same way I argued with all my girlfriends
mm,
in the household that I grew up in. And
mhm,
when that memory surfaced, had like a visceral reaction of feeling jealousy in every cell in my body. And then that spiritual healer, right? And again, taking consideration, I'm a guy from Queens, New York, grew up playing football, riding dirt bikes, getting in trouble. And now I'm 27, going through this spiritual awakening, sitting in front of a spiritual healer. And so that cellular memory came up. Then layers of jealousy came up, the emotional, uh, like that anger came up, the rage came up. When that released, the sadness it was protecting underneath the rage came up. And then underneath the sadness, when that released, a layer of fear of abandonment came up. And that layer of fear of abandonment was set in when I was 6, when my parents actually got divorced. So in 90 minutes, um, I went through an experience with this healer that, could have normally taken 5 to 10 years of traditional mental health and healing methods. And ever since that day in 1999, I have been like a moth to a flame to this type of work. And this is the kind of work that I do in my one-on-one coaching practice, in our retreats, inside of our membership, where we teach every day, and in our books. Some of the books are right behind me. So that's how I got into this. It was for my own stress, my own issues, And I never looked back after finding this work.
Wow, thank you so much. What a visceral story. And it makes so much
Yeah.
sense. It really connects dots. I mean, I'm sure it
Yeah.
connected some dots for you, but it's
Yeah.
fascinating. I wonder if some of us are already maybe wondering if there's a pattern like that for us. Hey,
And
Brett.
for me, a lot of the work is really connecting the dots, like you just mentioned, like our behaviors in our everyday life, going down, looking at our teenage years, our formative years. Really, that's where everything sets in, all the patterns set in. And yeah, I'm sure we're going to get into some more of that in our discussion today.
Awesome. So I set up this summit to help moms who are struggling with anger, with this sense of I lose it with my kids and I don't want
Mhm.
to. Why is anger such a like a trigger emotion? Like it seems like it just happens so suddenly, so fast. I can't control it. I'm just all of a sudden in it and acting out of it sometimes.
Yeah, it's like a multi-pronged answer to that. So the modern humans have been around for 200,000 years, right? If we look through our evolutionary history, but human beings have been around for 7 million years, and our fight or flight reaction has been ingrained and hardwired into our body for 7 million years. There's some nerve fibers that fire at 240 miles an hour. So think about that. Nerve fibers fire at 240 miles an hour that are
Okay.
sending messages of how our hardwired fight or flight reaction has been ingrained into our body. So that's why when anger happens, it's like boom, boom. And it's like we said two or three things and we're like, oh, I wish I could get that back. Like it just kind of pops out. And the illusion is that we're losing control, right? The bigger illusion is that we ever had control. Typically, parents, when
Well,
we feel like the kids are running late to school and they're not eating breakfast quick enough, or they're not getting out of bed on time, and we're losing control, that's when the anger starts just like popping out, right? But
yeah.
it's really an illusion because we never had control. We are always toggling from feeling calm to chaos. We have more calm, sometimes we have more chaos, but we've never had more or less control during this entire time. The calmness and the chaos is a reflection of core beliefs triggering feelings, emotions, and thoughts that create everything we experience inside and outside. So the way we regain control is by addressing what's happening inside of us when we're in that chaos state, right? When we're in that chaos state. That's the key for me, to direct our attention inside to the tension in our body, because that is the location of the cells that are causing the fire alarm, that are causing the anger to just kind of like pop out of our mouths and project onto our kids. So it's
Okay.
very tough to control it because we don't have control over anything. The only thing we have control over is how we could respond to our stress. It's very tough to gain control over it because these nerve fibers are firing so fast, and the fight or flight reaction or stress reaction has been hardwired for 7 million years inside these evolving bodies. So that's kind of like my answer to that question. And then we could go a little bit deeper when we talk about what our kids are represent and what they mean to us.
I would love to go there. Can I ask you two follow-up questions first?
Hmm. Yeah.
Why do we want control so badly if it's not even there?
Because we're attempting to get back into the calm state. We're attempting to get back to homeostasis. And our stress reaction, it was designed to get us to homeostasis. Like if you think of a frog on a lily pad, it's in homeostasis. But if you put your finger on that lily pad, now it's taken out of homeostasis. We stretch it out. And what does it do? It jumps to another lily pad, right? That's its stress reaction, its survival instinct. So the our stress worked awesome when we were not living in a modern world, when we were not living with 7 or 8 billion people on the planet, and we're just kind of groping, bumping into each other in the dark, and we're just pushing each other's buttons. But there is a divine purpose for all this. There is a divine purpose for all this. And the only place we can regain control is on the inside, that stress inside your body. And before we're done today, I'm going to share a few simple techniques to regain that control.
I'm so excited for the techniques. You mentioned the divine purpose and you alluded to there's a reason. There's a reason for all this. Will you take us there? Like what's the meaning that's going on behind all this?
Yeah, so human beings, we inherit generational trauma, right? If you think about being born in a body, we're a soul in a bodysuit. Our body is a reflection of past generations' unprocessed trauma. So all of our parents' unprocessed trauma gets handed down to us. Their parents, our great grandparents, great grandparents, it all gets handed down. So our body and our DNA holds this trauma for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So when we are born and we have a body, we're carrying around a lot of trauma. Our parents are experiencing that. And our child, when we have children, they are physical manifestations of our own inner child. Our inner child is all the unprocessed trauma that we grew up with in our formative years. So our children are actually manifestations, real life manifestations, and they trigger all the pain in us that we never processed. So where we have no patience with them is really where we have no patience with ourselves. And the
Mm.
divine purpose is that they are triggering us to enlighten us, to help us surface the pain so we can then let it go. But what happens is our kids trigger us, we project onto them, and we're just flopping the pain right back onto them.
Mm.
So it's becoming more aware of how we handle our reactions, how we handle the emotions, and how we let go of them in the heat of the moment so that we break the generational trauma cycle.
So if my children are, okay, so am I passing this generational trauma onto my children genetically or behaviorally?
It's the same thing. So the DNA is just a very fine, very tiny physical representation of who you are. So there's a genetic component to it, but really it passes on through behaviors, reactions. You know, when we get to a certain age, we start saying the things our parents used to say. We start thinking that the younger generation's music stinks, right? That's like, that happens to everybody. So we become what we grew up with at those stages and those ages. And the kids are doing their job. Their kids are to trigger you so that you could become conscious of where you need to heal so you can let go and then you could provide a safe space for them to find who they truly are.
Okay, so my healing facilitates the environment for them to have a more whole kind of birth into life. Birth
Yes,
into,
and it's moment by moment.
okay,
So
same.
it's moment by moment. So I'll give you an example. Someone that's been in a number of my programs, a few of my retreats, she watched the Trauma Super Conference today and she did the 5 prompts. And her daughter's a teenager. Her daughter was triggering her because she was late getting her daughter to school. The daughter was late getting ready. And the daughter reminded her, because the daughter also knows some of these techniques, like, Mom, it's not a big deal. I'm going to be 5 minutes late. What's the big deal? Right? It's okay. She's like, it's okay, Mom. We're okay.
Okay.
And then my dear friend that has been in a lot of our programs, it a light bulb went off. She's like, we are okay. And she's like, Brett, we had the best car ride to school. We were
Oh,
playing songs, we were singing together, right? So
oh.
so now when you get past that chain reaction and you actually break the chains, that's when the beauty can arise. It's almost like when you're walking on the cement, you see a crack in the cement and a little flower comes up from it. So
Mhm.
living in the city in the boroughs, I used to see that. And every time I would see it, I was like, wow, that is really special to me. So when we break the chains, our chain reaction with our kids, we create space for the beauty and the mastery in the moment to arise, which connects us even further. So
Thank you.
that's, yeah, that's what I was meaning by that.
Okay. And then out here in the Wild West, we have lots of towns that were developed at one point during the mining rushes, and now they're completely abandoned. And it is even more beautiful, I think, how nature really comes to take it all the way back over. Well, so you're painting such a beautiful picture of meaning and possibility. Are you ready to get into the action points of how we start to move there?
Yeah, and I just wanted to say one point about what you just mentioned about living, I believe you said in the Midwest, right?
Yeah, Rocky Mountain West, all the Wild West. Yeah.
And how natural the environment is. And I want you to think about that story I just shared about my dear friend and her teenage daughter. So we have an environment within our body, right? It's like programmed. This is like a machine. This is the inside my thick skull here is the best supercomputer in the universe, right? All of us have it, right? This was created, okay? And it's programmed for us for stress. It's programmed for us to find our like relaxed place, but it also is programmed for us to like get into these stressful situations with our kids, just like I was talking about, the generational waves of trauma that we absorb and we keep on passing down. You talked about a really natural environment. Stress is natural for our bodies, but when we cut through the stressful moments, right? When we cut through those stressful moments, now we're getting into a natural environment for the soul. And that's really why we came here. I feel the purpose
Mm.
of humanity is to break free from the pain inside the body. And all that means is our stress, our triggers, our teachers. So whoever your biggest trigger is in your life, whether it's your spouse, your kids, coworker, boss, parent, they're your teacher. They're showing you where your pain is, where the old emotions are, where you are to heal. So now I would love to get into that, second part of our talk. Yeah.
I was just thinking, and I've pondered this before, but my trigger seems to always be whoever's 6 years old. And I'm like, six? Like, I thought my life was really good for me when I was six. Like, that was one of the times that was stable and I had loving connection consistently with my mom. Anyway, but yes, I would love to hear how do we get into that? How do we learn from those triggering teachers?
Mhm. So I think you brought up an interesting point. So as our kids are growing up, they also will reflect back to us where we are unhealed, right? And I'll give you an example with my son when he was younger, when he was like from 0 to, I want to say 14-ish, we were great because I did a ton of inner child healing work on myself before he was even born. I never worked on my inner teenager. So when he was
Mm.
15, it was baboom, right? And the baboom was heart aching. It was many nights of crying, discord, fighting, arguing, but ultimately it's all coming around to a place of self-acceptance within me and me loving him unconditionally no matter where he is at and really learning how to listen, right? And that's a different kind of love when the person's a teenager. So I had to let go of all of the other issues that I had when I was a teenager that was still in there. And then he reflected that right back at me. And then we were like oil and water, really going at it hard. So I had to really dig deep and get to the sadness that was underneath all the anger and the fear of losing him. So that goes back to my original story and how I got into this work when my parents broke up. And then it was the original fear of losing my father. So there was, for my soul, the story and the evolution and the growth is really from healing the discord between the father and the son love connection. And that has been, yeah, that's been my soul's journey. So now, how do we use our triggers and turn them into teachers and healers for ourselves? Right? And
Yes.
I always recommend starting with the biggest trigger in your life, whoever it is, right? Spouse, child, supervisor, colleague, coworker, parent, sibling, whoever it is, identify it. And then just think about what is it that they do typically, routinely, that gets under your skin and gets that huge reaction. So you could just close your eyes and you could do that. and you're like, okay, it's, Bob from work or whoever, my spouse. We get into this fight like once a week. He says this, I feel that, I say this. And now we're caught in this ping pong match, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Well, I want you to identify where you feel the tension in your body when you think about it, right? Where is that tension when you're stressed, when you're thinking about that stress reaction? And then what emotion is fueling the stress? So we find out where in the body do we feel the tension, and then we touch that area, and then we start breathing into it, and then we identify what emotion's fueling it. The emotions usually are like anger, sadness, or fear. So if we go into any of those three emotions, you identify, you can kind of circle which one it is, right? So for me, my tension would usually be in my heart, and it would be anger. Anger's been an amazing teacher for me this lifetime.
Mm.
So when I think about that stress, then I'll say, okay, what thought is repeating in the back of my mind? Like if I just got quiet and I'm feeling the emotion, I'm feeling the tension, I'm breathing into it, what thought is associated with it? Right. So I hear a thought. How can he do this to me? So now I ask myself, looking back on my life, thinking about the household I grew up in, when I'm thinking about and I'm feeling the anger and I'm thinking, how can he do this to me? When is the first time I ever experienced this emotion and this thought together simultaneously? When's the first time? And then I flash across the faces of the people I grew up with, my mom, my brother, my father when I was younger and he was there. And then a face will come up hot. It'll come up red. And when that face shows up, you'll actually feel your emotions get more pronounced. And that is where the healing is done. So then what we do is we express all of our emotions. We pull that face that came up hot. We close our eyes. We hold that face right in front of in our mind's eye, right in front of us. And we express all our feelings to that person as if we were back there. We let all the feelings come up. When you do that, another layer is going to come up. Some of these emotions are complex. Sometimes anger is on the top. When you express all that, now the sadness comes up. Now it's time to let the tears flow. When the tears are flowing, you're doing a great job because now you're letting the pain go. You're actually getting to the source of the issue. So you express all your sadness and you hold their face right in your mind's eye and you keep talking it through. You use your words right out loud. And this whole entire time, you're touching the tension, you're embracing it with your hands, and you're breathing through the tightness inside your body with your breath. So it's like you're giving a gentle massage to the tension here, and then you're giving an inner massage with the breath. And the breath is very important because it holds the life force your cells need. And when we are stressed, our cells, the membrane gets very thick and the airflow cannot get in there. So when we are touching those cells, we're helping the cells relax because now the cells feel connected. And then we start breathing into those cells. And now the cells have the life force and the connection they need. This helps the cells let go of the stress and the pain. And the icing on the cake is when you feel you've expressed all the anger and all the sadness. You breathe
Mm.
a little deeper, a little slower, and you can refer to a higher power if you like. If you don't have a word for a higher power, you could just say universe or I, and then you would just say, I reclaim my true identity, just as the creator created me. Right where they could not love me perfectly, I am free. And you merge those words with the older pain at the source. And that's how we heal on the inside. That's how we break the cycles of generational trauma. And that's how we stop passing those reactions down to our children.
Wow. Thank you, Brett. I hope some of you, I'm doing this a little bit while I'm listening to you here right on the screen. And I hope some of you are also maybe have yourselves your ear pods in or whatever, and you're doing it with, um, but I invite you to really take this exercise to heart. Brett, this, even just half doing it here with you, I can feel a lot of shifting and a lot of
Yeah.
awareness I did not have before about that person and that trigger, and myself.
And the thing is, when you hold that old memory in mind and you're breathing deeply and slowly and you're touching the tension, the layers are going to start to unlock and release. And
Mhm.
when they do, that's you breaking through those old chains. You know, you're cutting the cords, right? You're breaking the mold. And what I feel we're doing in those moments is we're breaking through the programming in the body and we're creating more space to live authentically. So when things aren't going according to plan, you could access your higher faculties and say, okay, how am I going to right the ship? What's the best for everyone involved? What can I do right now that's the best for everyone involved? When we ask ourselves that question, when we're in a stressful or tense situation, that's when we're using our highest faculties and we're not coming from like that lower core survival stress reaction.
Awesome. Fascinating. Yes. Okay. Does that part take, do you find that part comes automatically or takes a little bit of awareness once you've done the other part of the process? Or is it a little bit of both?
Remember you mentioned connecting the dots in the beginning when we first started talking?
Yes.
When you do the inner work and you just do that little exercise that we just went through together, you're doing the inner work. You're going there, right? And then when your trigger activates your stress, let's say they do something or say something and you feel it all rush over you, the anger, the reaction, you want to, um, say something really quick to get everything back to the way you want it. And when you connect the dots and you say, you know what? It's not even about him. It's actually about her from back there, right?
Mm,
So for my
yeah.
example, it would be it's not about my son, it's about my disconnection I had with my dad.
Yeah.
So that's when I was able to stop projecting my anger and my wanting to control him. And, you know, talk about an uphill battle. Try controlling a teenager, right? Yeah. It's almost like if you can't beat them, join them. So it's like, but you have to like really become a great listener, a great question asker to help the other person break through those cycles that they're going through too,
Mm,
right? So I feel like we spent some good time talking about how we can break through our own anger, right?
mhm,
By piecing, by connecting the dots to where it started with us.
mm,
This way, we're not putting the blame on that trigger, that person, let's say our child. And if anyone is out there with a teenager that is going through a tough time, that is very emotional or withdrawn, right? I encourage you to practice these 5 prompts with them anytime they feel upset or they're like distant from you. You know, just go in there and you could also practice really good body language to connect with them. The best body language is you want to lead a little bit with your left shoulder and you're going to look into their right eye with your left eye. That's going to subconsciously tell their brain that you're in listening mode. Then you're also going to use very soft facial expressions. Could lift your eyebrows every once in a while to show that you're listening. And you don't want to touch your face. You don't want to cross your arms. You don't want to act erratic. You don't want to raise your voice. You want to have a very chill, calming pitch and tone to your voice and pace. And then you use these 5 prompts, right? And another way is if you're sitting in front of them, you have your palms up on the table and you have your left hand a little bit more forward. When you have your palms up, or at least one palm, let's say your left palm up, that is showing them you're really in receptive mode. You're not going to be in judging mode. You're not going to be in criticizing mode. You're really in listening mode and you're really receptive. And I've done this on many occasions in diverse environments, and it's amazing how it works. So the 5 prompts that will help you break through repetitive stress between you and a spouse, you and a parent, you and your child, is practicing that body language. And then when they're upset, and they could be projecting on you, right? They could be like, you're the biggest jerk in the world. You're this, you're that, right? And then I want you to do this. I want you to lean in with childlike curiosity and compassion and just say, please tell me more. And then they might be like, oh, I'm going to tell you more. They're going to tell you all this other stuff. They're going to project even more about you, right? And then you
Yes.
could say, oh my gosh, I want to hear everything.
Wow.
And then you lean in again with compassion and childlike curiosity. They're going to go off. Let them go off. And then you're going to ask, what's the hardest part to talk about? And now you're starting to get through the subconscious divide. So there's our conscious mind, and then there's problems in the subconscious. Their issues with you are stemming from the subconscious. So now you're starting to melt down that divide when you say, what's the hardest part to talk about? Now you're going to open up a whole nother can of worms. You let them talk. You don't interrupt. You're just showing compassionate, listening body language, right? Leaning in with the left side, soft eyes, really releasing your own stress by breathing into any tension from what you're hearing, right? You could even touch the tension. And if they ask you, what are you doing? You could say, well, I'm really feeling what you're saying,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And then the fourth prompt is, what's your biggest fear about that? Now you are underneath the subconscious divide. You have surfaced some core issues for them, and now you're just listening. Okay. So if you practice that body language good enough, if you weren't judging them and you were just listening, they're going to eventually feel safe enough to tell you what's the hardest part to talk about, to tell you their biggest fear. And then you say, oh my gosh, what does that feel like? And now they're really just talking about the feelings going on in their body. And then after they're done, you would reach out with two hands with your palms up to see if they'll put their hands in yours or if they'll give you a hug. And now you're co-regulating with them. And in the
Mm.
back of your mind, you're just saying, I love you. After
Mm.
like the 10th time, once per breath, as you're breathing deep and slow, you say, I love you. Your heart opens. They feel the love coming from you. And now you're helping them reconnect with love. And that is divine service. And that technique is inside the Suicide Prevention Family Handbook, that little blue one right there, because it helps people break through those emotional blocks to communicating with each other. So,
So everyone, I think it's already obvious if you haven't upgraded to the premium so that you can go back and listen to this talk and use it as a manual over and over and over, or buy Brett's book right there. Or what other resources can they go back to? Because you just gave us gold. You just gave us such, for me, those really like maybe I didn't have emotional intelligence well modeled in my family of origin, right? So you just gave me such concrete steps of how to hold my body, how to hold my face, what to think, how to manage myself inside, what to say, right? To really be responsive in a constructive way and receptive in a constructive way during difficult relationship patterns with a teen or an adult. Thank you so much. Where else can we go and
mm,
continue either hear these things again or learn other really helpful? They're all five steps so far.
yeah, so stressisgone.com, we have a great free gift. It's a free mini course on how to break free from anxiety. It's 3 videos, a meditation, and a PDF that teaches you how to do it. The next step up, we have 3 books on Amazon. They're right behind me over there. That big blue one is for veterans. The little blue one is for anyone suffering with severe depression, or if you have someone with depression or suicidal ideation in your family. And that gold book over there, all the way over there, that's the Stress is Gone method that has all of our tools. And then at stressisgone.com, we have our coaching, my trainings, the mentorship, the certifications, and the retreats. So we have a plethora of tools and services. It's just a matter of what you're comfortable with. I like to meet people where they're at. So if you're comfortable reading a book, you got that for you. If you're comfortable using an app, we have the PTSD Keys app that's on iPhone and Android. It predicts your stress. It helps you surface and soothe those traumatic memories so you can get ahead of your stress. And then it helps you set up your meditation practice. And the last major thing I wanted to share with all of the amazing moms out there, and every mom to me is amazing because you're bringing life to this planet. The planet's crazy. That's a whole nother topic. But people are amazing, especially moms, because they bear life. And that is just mystifies me. So put yourself first. I work with moms that have 5 kids, 6 kids, and it's like, how can you put yourself first? It's impossible. I know the feeling that it's impossible because I had that feeling. But I'm going to tell you this. Everyone around you gets a second-rate version of you when you put one person ahead of you. Forget about putting all 5 of your kids ahead of you. If you put anyone ahead of you, everyone in your life gets a second-rate version of you. And all that means is that try to drive your car across country with 4 flat tires.
Mm,
Everyone gets a second-rate version of you because you're not giving yourself what you need, that self-care and that self-love, right? For your own mental and emotional health. That might just be 2 minutes. Mommy has to go lay down and you're on the couch. The kids could be running around the living room, but you're laying down on the couch doing stress stopper breath work, touching the tension in your body, breathing deeply and slowly into the tightness, listening to the chaos that the kids are doing, right? But focusing on the inside here, breathing deep and slow, and once per breath in the back of your mind, silently saying, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. That's slow. Doing that for 2 or 3 minutes lowers your heart rate, clears your mind, and calms your emotions. It's like a little reset. So I encourage you to do that when you go to bed at night. You'll be out like a light, usually in 5 minutes. Even people that have severe sleep disorders, they always call me the next day and say they got to bed in 5 minutes. It was amazing. And then you practice it every time you get stressed out and you recharge your batteries because no one else is going to put you first. Look, in an ideal world, your husband puts you first. In an
mm,
ideal world, your kids put you first. But guess what? We're all trying to survive here. Everyone is in survival mode. So they can't put you first because we don't know how to. So we have to put ourselves first. So be your savior. Do the breath work for, 3 to 5 minutes a day, especially when you're going to sleep, and start to unwind all that tension from your body. You'll be able to think more clearly and access the higher faculties, the highest parts of our thinking and our rationalization.
Brett, thank you so much. Your work is so profound and it has tied together so many discrete elements I've learned
Mm.
from different sources into like one cohesive like method and strategy and process. I'm so excited for myself, certainly, to put more of this to work and practice some of these breakthrough skills that you've just taught us. And I'm really excited for our mamas too, our amazing mamas. And thank you for that message about you're right. If we're not going to take care of us, who will? And
Right.
a lot is riding on us. So thank you so much for your wisdom, your experience, your humility, and working on yourself and your service to everyone else. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for doing this. It was a true honor to be with you and to share the message.
Thank you.